Greetings all, and welcome to Dual-Wielder's Writing Debugging, where I break down writing tips and tactics into bite-sized chunks to help you improve your own writing. For this installment, let's have a look at what tone is, and how it affects your story. Tone is the feeling that you want to convey to your audience. Some moments should be suspenseful, others lighthearted, or even cause you grief. That's the obvious part, but something that's not given as much thought is how the tone of different sequences lead into and interact with each other. You'll want to make sure that you don't have two conflicting tones in the same scene, or that the switch between tones is too drastic for a given event. For example, in many battle sequences in fantasy and sci-fi, tone can be lighthearted while our cast is winning. They can crack jokes or funny poses, even demonstrating how their skill outstrips that of their opponents. But when things aren't going well, when they're in serious danger of dying, that's where the levity needs to stop. If you want to portray the circumstances as dire, then the humor needs to be left behind, at least in the vast majority of cases. Humor directly conflicts with our worry for the characters that we're supposed to care about. Take a look at Thor Ragnarok. This film is riddled with comedy, with it bleeding into almost every scene to some degree. While this works for much of the film, it detracts from moments that should be serious. Hela is supposed to be the goddess of death. That alone indicates that she should be feared. But when her dialogue is written in such a way that she comically backtracks on her words, her getting goofily annoyed by nobody knowing who she is, and exaggeratingly sauntering through Odin's vault, lessen her ability to be imposing. This is a character who we should hold our breath for when she appears, but the comedy counteracts this. She can break Mjolnir, but instead of intimidating, she comes off as merely eccentric. Scenes that should be tense are instead flitting between an attempt at tension and trying to be comedic. But Ragnarok has more tonal flaws than its handling of Hela. The comedy seeps into other areas where it has no need to be. Thor, who was portrayed up to this point as fierce, cowers at the notion of his hair being cut. What is supposed to be a scene of Thor's grief, mixed with seething anger at Loki's betrayal, is undercut by this rock golem's appearance, trying to kick Loki's illusion that disappeared long before he entered the frame. Comedy runs counter to this sequence. What should have been a heroic moment of Bruce Banner transforming into the Hulk to save the people of Asgard from Fenrir is undone by him flopping onto the bridge at high speed without becoming the Hulk. A moment of triumph was sacrificed for a cheap gag. Even the destruction of Asgard was ruined by the aforementioned stone golem. What should be a moment of somber defeat at the complete annihilation of this people's home was gutted by this character's tone deafness. To switch things up though, have a look at Valve's TF2 short, Expiration Date. There are a wide variety of tones at play here, but they blend in such a way to where they support each other instead of conflicting. In this short, the cast of mercenaries believe that their extensive use of the engineer's teleporter has left them riddled with tumors that will kill them in 3 days' time. The tone of this scene is grim, and while we do get a few moments of levity from the demo man teleporting in with alcohol, it only lasts for a few seconds, and is at the end of the scene, not the middle, where it would be distracting. Not to mention that the other characters remain serious, showing that he's out of place. Following this, the spy attempts to gather each man's last wish before their supposed deaths. This was undermined by the scout placing doodles insulting the spy into the bucket instead of their death wishes. While this is for comedic effect, it doesn't undermine the serious tone of the scene. For one, the spy continues to take the matter sincerely, until it becomes obvious that the scout sabotaged the whole thing, upon which he orders everyone out of the room. Instead of sacrificing the moment for the possibility of a laugh, it plays into the traits of both characters. The spy even gets his revenge when the scout asks for his help with his last request, which is to go on a date with Miss Pauling. The tone that follows is an unusual mixture of comedy with sternness, but it works here. The spy agrees to help the scout, but they don't have much time. While it's amusing how he berates the Scout, he does so in an earnest manner. He helps coach Scout through various points that should help him on his date, and we get insight to the other mercenaries as well. Remember that they all think they're going to die soon, and they're still here helping Scout out. The end of the short reveals that the tumors only grow inside bread, and thus the mercenaries are not in fact going to die. The soldier, however, has done nothing but teleport bread for the past few days, which has caused it to grow into a massive monster. While this is amusing and ridiculous, the short treats it as a serious threat, and the culmination of Scout working with Miss Pauling to rig up a bomb to destroy it while the other mercenaries fight it off gives the scene the tension it needs. There are no unnecessary gags to lessen the mood. A scene that is meant to be taken seriously stays tense. Once the monster is defeated, though, the tone is allowed to shift back into comedy, with Miss Pauling offering to allow the Scout to go with her on jobs, one of which is killing the person that set off the briefcase alarm, which was Scout. So to sum it all up, make sure you remember the mood that each scene of your writing is going for. Don't insert things just because they're fun if the scene doesn't call for it. You don't want your audience to be taken out of the moment by a joke that doesn't land, or a character's demeanor being out of place. But if you enjoyed this video, or found it entertaining or informative, leave a like if you're so inclined, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And may you all have a weapon in each hand.